home run threat. He's great lateral movement, one step. He can, he's got vision. He can create plays on his own, aside from having the size, the speed, the explosiveness, and everything like that. I think he'd fit awesome in the offense. But like I said, this is going to be a highly contested recruiting battle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in. That was Clint Cosgrove from Rivals on Michigan's recruitment of running back from Texas, Tatum. We'll be talking about TT today on this Friday as we come to you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, talking about the latest in Michigan sports and this Memorial weekend. Hopefully you have a meaningful Memorial weekend. I ask you as one of the questions when you're watching this live, sometimes you can weigh in on anything with your opinion, but I ask you what you're doing this Memorial weekend. Now, what we're doing here today is we've got Jadyn Davis news about something that he dreamed about, and it has happened. We'll talk about him getting the nod. Michigan's schedule, we know a little bit more about one of the games that Michigan will be playing coming up this year. But we'll start because there's a lot of little news items about recruiting, specifically the running back position. And when it comes down to the running back position, you know that Michigan has Jordan Marshall out of Cincinnati, Ohio, highly thought of running back out of the Buckeye State. And I remember last year at this time, Cole Cabana, that came in last year's recruiting class out of Dexter, was a highly thought of back, but, in state, really close to Ann Arbor. I know he was thinking about Michigan State, but, Michigan was able to get that commitment. But a lot of people, considering Michigan's success running the ball and with their offensive line that they had in 2021, a lot of people wondered, why aren't more like really big time running backs considering and committing to Michigan? That was one of the questions, definitely at this time last year. Well, then Marshall accepts the challenge and decides he's coming to Michigan. And now the Wolverines are after this Tatum. And as you heard Cosgrove say, it's going to be a tough recruiting battle. Everybody wants this guy. And, yeah. I mean, these are, when you're going after the big time guys, everybody is going to want them. And that's no exception here when it comes down to Tatum. You got Michigan right at the top. Oklahoma seems to be right, wherever you want to put them, right there, even with Michigan or right behind them. You still have USC in the picture and in Georgia. Georgia and SC might be looking for some other backs. And this is the thing, the timing and then, who else you're recruiting and those kind of things. But, Michigan, they really want Tatum. And I know Michigan fans, as you sit there, you really want Tatum as well. And, if U of M had the combination of Marshall and Tatum, you'd feel great. I was going to say you'd feel good. No, you'd feel great about the running back position for 24. Michigan getting two of the most highly thought of running backs in the country. And it could be a reality. Trevor McHugh, who joined us earlier this week, the senior editor of the Maize and Blue Review, he put in his future cast for Michigan and Taylor Tatum. Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, has had, a long-standing, I don't know the exact timing of it. It's been a while that he's had his cast in for Tatum and Michigan as well, and those guys, they're not just sitting around spinning a wheel and thinking, let's go ahead and hit send and put that cast in for Michigan. They're doing work behind the scenes, that recruiting detective work that you have to do if you want to come up and, what you're talking about, you can, blindfold yourself and, just wildly go ahead and, which some people do. when it comes down to recruiting, but not those guys. And so, when it comes down to Tatum and Michigan, the thing for me, while I am a little hesitant, people, and I haven't looked to see if Andres is with us today, but Andres is like, why don't you put your forecast? I call it forecast. Why don't you put your forecast in for Tatum? And I feel good with McHugh and Henschke, going in and doing it, but I'm a little hesitant because of the baseball part of it. Now Tatum is apparently a great high school baseball player. And apparently Tatum wants to not only play football, but he wants to also play baseball. Now, Michigan, they already have somebody on the team right now, Joey Velasquez, a linebacker on the team. He has played both baseball and football for Michigan, so it can happen. Jim Harbaugh, will say some schools don't like that, but I was going to say he allows it, but he encourages it. If Tatum wanted to do that, I just think, and I really like the Michigan baseball program, but there's nothing you can do about where you're located. And baseball in the early spring, college baseball, you have to like playing the game in 30 and 40-degree weather, which is really a challenge. I don't like watching baseball unless it's over 60 degrees. And it's rarely over 60 degrees when you're talking about college baseball. And then you just look at these other schools and you think baseball and football, and you think USC, Georgia, Oklahoma, those are all nice. But, I'm a fair weather guy. And I don't know 100% that, Tatum wants to play baseball. I don't know that he's opposed to, going out there and wearing a hoodie while he plays and bundling up while he plays baseball. Maybe he does. And it's happened. Many guys have done it. So but that is, I'm just telling you where my hesitation is from, hitting the button and saying, hey, I think that along with McHugh and along with Henschke, that Tatum is going to end up being blue. Now, I hope that would be awesome for the Michigan recruiting class in Michigan overall. And now we're seeing it. I always wondered when it was going to happen, where you have the success on the field, like you have everything going, but the part about having success on the field and getting to the college football playoff not one but 2 years in a row, and just how that was going to help, and when that was he's going to see the benefits of that in recruiting. And I think Michigan's seeing it now. And I think they're seeing it at running back. And I tell you, if they do end up getting Tatum, then it will be official that kids are flocking to Ann Arbor because they know something special is going on, and they want to continue with that something special that's going on in Ann Arbor by, committing with the offensive line, with the running back position at Michigan. There's not a team in the country, and it doesn't matter where you're watching. Mostly you guys are all Michigan fans that are watching, but let's say, let's say you were from Oklahoma and you're watching. There's no better backfield in the country than what Michigan's bringing to the table coming up this year. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, the one-arm bandit. Those two right there, I think they're the top two running backs in the country. Apologies to a bunch of guys that, you might think, what about the old Miss? Okay, I know he's an All-American and everything. I just think I was going to say when it's all said and done. I think it's not even when it's all said and done. I think by October, there'll be others saying, Michigan's got the best two, not just the top. They've got the best two running backs in the country. I believe that's going to happen. I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's happening. Mike is already looking forward to the final regular season game, Michigan beating Ohio State. And Mike, it's always a good time to talk about beating Ohio State. So I think you're with it. Mike is going to grill and relax by the pool. Mike, that's a nice game plan. It really is. Both of those. Either one is nice. Combining grilling and the pool And it takes me back. When I was young, I can remember, in Michigan, what happens on Memorial Day is that the beaches open up. And as a youngster, we would go to the beach and you would count it down. You'd be so excited about it being, the beaches being open. And I think the pools, I don't know if the pools were open before Memorial. People open up the pools, open up the beaches, man. It's the unofficial start of summertime, and the weather's cooperating where it's going to be just like that. These last 2 days, if you're waking up early, it feels like fall. You might feel like it's Michigan, Ohio State. You're out there, it's 40 degrees. You're like, wow, man, when's summer coming? It's coming tomorrow, Saturday, Monday, all next week, man. You didn't like that cold weather? It's gone, starting tomorrow. So that's good. Richard, where, it always feels like it's summertime down there in Florida, he's going to Hollywood to float around the Kalahari Lazy River. Now, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I am familiar with with a lazy river, especially where was the last time I went to uh, Wisconsin, and there were water slides that were happening with the family. I went on the water slides too, but they definitely had the lazy river, and I jumped in the lazy river. I enjoyed that. I'm all about a lazy river. Now, if it's outside in Florida, with gators and stuff like that, maybe not. John is going to be doing yard work. All right, John. Barbecue and paying respects to the grandparents that served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Well, there you go. You lost your grandparents in those the wars right there. That's what this weekend is about. John, thank your parents for their sacrifice. Antoine, the Michigan baseball program was actually the first to recruit Tatum, so I wouldn't worry about it, Dennis. It's probably going to be on the back of his list. Well, that's some nice information, Antoine. You tell me not to worry. I don't know if worry. It is a hesitation. It is something, but it is. I'm going to tell you, and this is true. If somebody would type in, "Hey, you're a fair weather fan. You're not going to go to a baseball game if it's under 60 degrees," and I'd say, "No, I won't do that." Now, I do have some that rule. I will break that. That's not a law. It's a rule of mine. It used to be 70 degrees, but then, as it would go and I would get some tickets and it would be, 65 degrees. And I'd go down there. I'm like, well, 65 degrees is great. But below 60, I don't want to go down to the ballpark. So if you accuse me of being a fair weather fan, I am. The exception is the postseason. I'll go when it's really cold. Two of the coldest, I went to a bunch of cold games, but two that jumped right to my mind. Michigan. The Tigers were playing the A's in the first round. That best of five. Remember they played them back to back. Verlander and Sonny Gray were dueling. There was a game the year that Cabrera won the Triple Crown, and the Tigers had were at home against the A's. It was freezing. Now, it might have only said it was like 40 degrees, but there was this whipping wind. It felt like it was 20 below that time. And the other time was the only World Series game that the Tigers have won, and now whatever it is, 35 whatever years. And that would have been against the Cardinals in 2006 when Kenny Rogers was on the mound. Dr. Freeze. And he was Ed Pinetar. However, if you looked at his hand, he had that big spot on his hand. They would have been checking him. They'd have been checking the gambler, nowadays. But back then, Dr. Freeze got him. But that was a cold day as well, Antoine. But I'm with you. I'm with you on there. Richard, hey, indoor baseball practice is a thing now. John loved catching foul balls outside of Fisher Field as a kid in the mid-90s. Many cars were dented outside of Ray Fisher. Yeah, I liked some. That reminds me, of talking about the cold and Ray Fisher back before. They've got the nice press box now. They've renovated that whole area is remarkable now. Softball, baseball, but back in the 90s, I worked in Ann Arbor in the early 2000s. Ray Fisher press box, there wasn't a whole lot to it, and they updated it. But before, we broadcast outside, and I got winter boots, and when you just have to sit there and you're talking, and it's 40 degrees, man. But man, you get the sun shining out there at Ray Fisher Stadium, and you're sitting out there watching a little Michigan baseball. You're right. And smart people, I say smart, experienced people, John, know that you should park a little bit, unless you don't care about maybe catching a foul ball on the hood or something. You get to park a little further away, because the parking right there is ripe to end up getting hit. That's for sure. You probably need to keep up with more social media, Dennis. Tatum is 90% that Michigan gets him. Hey, Antoine, thanks for the advice. I'm just telling you my reservations. I hope Michigan gets Tatum. I told you who's got the future cast in for him. But, sometimes, like you can have he could be 99%. I'd say, you know what? You got to watch it, because he's, because of baseball, something. It doesn't worry you. It worries me. We can be a little bit different, Antoine. June, Jason saying, is going to be a huge month for Michigan. They've got a bunch of 24 official visits coming in. June 9th is going to be the big one. And Justin Scott and Ryan Wingo. Oh, yeah. Now you're talking. Now you're going. I'm there. Jason is indicating 100% to Michigan. Well, hey, Jason and Antoine, I'll say it again. I hope you're right for this guy, and that he is going to be wearing the maize and blue. I'll remember who said what. I've got the receipts on this show, right, Antoine? We'll just go. We've got the receipts. We've got video of it. We can go back, and we can, when it happens, we can go back and take this 2 minutes and say, look, Antoine knew back in May that Tatum was going to be coming in, and he told me not to worry. He said, relax. No problem. All right. Speaking of June, Jason mentioning it, it does seem to be shaping up to be a big month for Michigan and recruiting. And I know, Michigan is expected to get Tatum and everything, but they also are continuing to bring running backs in and apparently recruit them, and the possibility of, however you want to look at it, I would say maybe hedging their bet. I don't know what you would say, but on June the 9th, Mike Hart and, Antoine, I know you watched actually the film of Micah Capana out of Las Vegas. He's coming in June 9th. Could be. Rivals doesn't have the rankings on him. I think that will change coming up. They've got an update. Wouldn't surprise me now that somebody like Michigan is in on him, that you'll see, him showing up on the radar. But the Las Vegas running back is coming in for a June 9th visit. Also found out yesterday that Willis, Yasin Willis, he's a 4-star running back out of St. Joseph's in New Jersey. He's a big one. Look at this, 6'1", 210. That's a nice size at running back. And he's close to being a top 10 running back in all of the country. And he has locked in an official visit for Michigan on June 23rd. Rutgers and Pitt first. He wants to see Georgia and Bama. He's been in some time. He has not set that up, but I saw him mentioning on the Maize and Blue review that, he was looking there for some OVs, and then he wants to make a decision before the middle of July, but a name to keep in mind because he is coming in, and, he could end up being a part of this class. Now, I know for everybody that's in love with Tatum that you'd say, well, too bad, Tatum, you're how many running backs is Michigan going to take and all of that? You can figure it out how you might want to go about and do that or whatever. We'll take a little bit more feedback, and here is Richard saying Davis is in the Elite 11 thing coming up. Oh, the Elite 11 thing, that's what's next that we have for you. And there he is, Jadyn Davis, getting the welcome to the Elite 11. There is the Elite 11 Twitter picture giving the invite to Davis, and Davis says he accepts. And in fact, Davis called the invite a dream come true to the Elite 11. And he said he's, quote, ready to learn and compete with an exclamation point. The Elite 11, or as far as they go, put his Twitter handle, and they had an exclamation point about welcoming him into the Elite 11. And that's great. And that is something to keep an eye on. That's fun. It is for some competition. And, you're a top signal caller. You're one of the top 11, 15, how many ever they end up. You'd think it would just be 11, but they go over that number and whatever it is. I did jot down some names. Maybe Antoine isn't keeping up with all of them, but that's why he watches a show like this, so he can be up to speed on everything. And some of the names to remember, noteworthy Elite 11 quarterbacks, Jadyn Davis will be out there competing with. Remember, he was throwing down in Georgia against Air Nolan, and Nolan got the nod and the invite, the southpaw for the Buckeyes, and everybody was like, Davis, not everybody around here. Let's just say Ohio State fans are like, ooh, we won this one. Well, Davis is still heading to the Elite 11. Nolan will be there. The Grunkemeyer, which is an awesome name and one that we'll be hearing in years ahead because he's going to be in the Big Ten. Ethan Grunkemeyer is heading to State College to play for Penn State. Some other noteworthy names, CJ Carr will be at Elite 11. Of course, he's going to Notre Dame. Julian saying, let's all do it. Just saying, Michigan was recruiting him. Saying ended up at Alabama. And Dominic Raiola's son, Dylan, who I believe was committed to Ohio State, decommitted, and now is headed to Athens to play for Kirby Smart. Dylan Raiola. So there's some of the bigger names and ones to keep in mind. And if you're somebody that needs to keep up, like AJ, you can just go back and rewatch this, AJ. So you'll be up to speed, and you'll know exactly what's going on when it comes down to the Elite 11. So that's it, and that's exciting. I hope we'll be able to watch a little bit more of that. I enjoyed watching both Nolan and Davis throw back to back and what they were doing there. And I don't know if I saw every throw, so it was going to be hard to determine myself that Nolan got the better of him, whatever else. But maybe we'll be able to watch that thing, and we'll be able to make that determine. Jason watched Davis and Nolan throwing. He thought Davis looked better. Well, the video, I forget if it was 11 or 22 minutes long, whatever it was. I watched the whole thing myself, Jason, and I couldn't tell really if you have to. I didn't at the end. I didn't score it. I wasn't, I got just watch the guys throw, but I didn't see Davis necessarily missing any throws, and I didn't see Nolan missing any. And then the time when I didn't think that Nolan made the best throw, it was a deep throw into the end zone where the receiver had to wait on it. And I thought, that's not the best throw. Davis had a similar type throw where his receiver had to kind of stop and wait on it too. So it really seemed like a dead heat. But I don't like dead heats. And I don't know how much I was watching there, and I didn't grade it. But, you're saying, in your opinion, Davis looked better. I can't say that. But I can't say that Nolan looked better either. Now Jason coming around, he said they thought both of them looked good. Yeah, I don't know much about Wingo. I'll have to do a little bit more work, Brian, on Wingo. Justin Scott is a player that Michigan would love, and he put an initial list out that did not include Notre Dame. And when I talked with Clint Cosgrove a while back, he had Notre Dame as the leader, but then Notre Dame didn't show up on this list recently. And then I knew that his mom said he wanted to stay close to home, and Georgia was on the list, and so was Miami. Ohio State was too. And I was thinking, well, maybe Michigan, with proximity and the family wanting him to stay close to home, that and in Michigan's also getting a visit, maybe they do have a better chance than what's being kind of thrown out there. But then I did see just recently about Scott that Notre Dame was back on that list. So I don't know if that was some kind of clerical error or what was going on. And who knows? The guys make up their list, and then, they throw a team on, and then they take a team off, and there you go. Mark, didn't know you were a Terp. Thought you were true blue, maybe even ×2. I don't understand what that means, Mark. Although I've never set. I did get a degree from University of Maryland European Division, but I've never rooted for Maryland in anything. But so I don't really know where that's coming from. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever even mentioned the thing about Maryland. So out of nowhere, maybe on the radio back in the day I did. Here's Glenn. Good to see him. John, you don't want to go in the water at the beach at Lake Michigan during Memorial Day weekend. The water is extremely cold. That's some great advice, John. I remember, it's been a while. I was in college, and the friend of mine was dating a girl, and she was from Algonac, Michigan, and we went there. And she lives right on the water. The whole thing is like water right there, like Algonac. And we're like, let's go. It was warm. We're going into the water. Woo, man. Swimming in some cold water. Of course, that's not Lake Michigan. What is that? Is that Lake St. Clair right there? It is cold. That's true. OT. This is a no-show Tuesday. The no-shows on Tuesday and Thursday are killing me. You make my hour after lunch one of the best hours of the workday. OT, I really appreciate seeing that from you. And I wanted to tell you, I'm still around. I am on the Maize and Blue Review, and you can join up, and you can spend your hour checking out some of my stories or a story. I try to write something. I have so far. In fact, I have it here. This was what I did yesterday. I put a little story up on the Maize and Blue Review. I would have talked about yesterday. I would have come up with 5 things that you can expect from the Michigan defense. I just put it in writing on the Maize and Blue Review. The defense to be as good or better than last year. Halftime adjustments, depth and versatility. Mike Sainristil still. I talked about Agent Zero. And then also I compared Will Johnson to one of the all-time great football players at Michigan or anywhere. You could check that out. And, you do that you could see that by joining up the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. That's how you get it done. You can see that story, of course, everything that's going on in recruiting. You can ask questions about, somebody had the Wingo question with the experts that will know the answers to that kind of question about Wingo, recruiting both basketball, the portal, all of that, numbers, and the things that are going on. That's the way to get it done. OT, and hey, there's at some point, maybe we'll just start going back to it. We'll see. There's nothing to say that we can't do that. Mark is looking forward to the Indy 500 weekend. Yeah, there you go. I'm a open wheel racing fan. I'm with you on that. Let's see. Jason says the Elite 11 is for showing off your passing skills. Basically, I don't look too much into it. Yeah, look, when you're, it's just something. Like, what we're doing right now. I would rather be at Michigan Stadium watching Michigan play football. It's a long ways off, so we're just talking about it. Jadyn Davis, him at the Elite 11 throwing in shorts together against some of the other top quarterbacks in the country. We'd rather see them, with a pass rush coming at and see those guys. But it's something. Nothing to go crazy about. Antoine asking what my Twitter account is. I got to keep you on point. Yeah, well, there you go. That's what you should be doing, Antoine. My Twitter account is on Twitter. Wait for it. If you look up on the screen, you see the at Dennis Fithian. That's where I'm at on Twitter. And Antoine and anybody out there, tell me. I'll follow you guys back. Gary saying that the Tigers are doing well this year. Well, Gary, you're tugging on my heartstrings a little bit. I watched Alex Faedo last night. I was pretty impressed with the young man, and Tigers getting some key hits short the other night, a pinch hit, a home run, which was big time. They've been able to close down games, and with baseball, there's a lot of different ways to look at it incrementally, whether you want to go 5 games, series by series, which is a good way to do it. Did you win this series? That kind of thing. I've always been one to look at it with Sparky's first 40 game mark, when they play 40 games, but then also the holidays during the baseball season are a great time to take stock in your baseball team. Memorial Day, the 4th of July, Labor Day weekend, conveniently placed through a baseball season. And, I like some things that I see from the Tigers there, Gary, because there was a part at the beginning of the season where this thing looked like it was taking a big time turn and they were going to be one of the worst teams in baseball. And that was going to be miserable being out of it as early as they look like they were. But they have come back a little bit and at least made it interesting. And so hopefully they can take us into June and get something going. Hey, just get above 500. Make it interesting. Jason is waffling a little bit, talking about Waffle visiting on the 9th or 16th. Waffle is, Jason, what's Waffle? He's a defensive lineman. Was he the guy that was at Notre Dame that decommitted and now Michigan's looking at? He could be part of this class. I'm with you on that. Jason is saying that Tatum is the number 1 running back. Here's Andres. Mark saying, good afternoon, has 9, maybe 10 in the top 100. That's a big hill. Oh, no, you're saying Georgia, not good afternoon. Yeah, well, Georgia, they've always done a good job in recruiting, and now they're winning. And, now they look like a dynasty. So, yeah, they're going to continue to do well in recruiting. Antoine, I know you love the kid from Vegas. Jason saying USC wasn't even on Tatum's list until recently. Oh, okay. Antoine saying that USC gave up on Tatum. That's the report anyways. Yeah, well, I don't know where your report. I don't know about giving up on him, but I did see Josh Henske saying something. He talked to somebody out there from USC, and I don't know if they said giving up on him, but maybe they were looking, somewhere else. Antoine talking about guys giving up. Sometimes you give up. Sometimes you recruit somewhere else, somebody else. So that's it. Okay, let's see. Jason giving what he thinks is the top 3. Michigan, Oklahoma, and USC. That sounds good to me. I'm with you on that. I'll buy it. Let's see what John is saying about the Elite 11, that he hears Grunkenmeyer kid has the same personal QB that Drew Aller had. That quarterback coach also coaches 25 QB Ryan Montgomery. He's become the personal QB developer for Penn State. Well, that pipeline, of course, Michigan, when it comes down to Montgomery, now a lot of people want Bryce Underwood in 25, but 25 is also a name to remember for Michigan and quarterbacks with Montgomery if things don't work out with Underwood, right? But it's a nice little tidbit, John, that you get a little pipeline there going to Penn State. That's it. Okay, so that's where we're at. Look at this, Gary. How about Gary, a testimonial? He signed up to the Maize and Blue Review, and it's great. It's great to see you, Gary, on the Maize and Blue Review. I like that. Let's see, Mark. Just a thought. All you Maize and Blue Review guys were Michigan, not after market conversations. Fans who lived it on campus, much more objective, felt the pain, even shut out by Minnesota when number one. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know if you're taking a shot here or you're. This is a humble brag about you have gone to Michigan, Mark. Well, let me work through it a little bit. All of you Mason Blue Review guys were Michigan, not after market conversations. I don't understand that. People that go live it and are much more objective feel the pain, even when Ricky Foggy, I think you're talking about, back in, was it 86, 85, when Michigan was number one team in the country, and Ricky Foggy beat Michigan. You know, Mark, my stance on people that went to Michigan claiming that they're better and bigger Michigan fans than people did not go there, than people that did not, I give them that. I think if you went to the school and you want to flash your credentials and you want to say that, you know, you're, I don't know about more important, but because you lived it, whatever kind of stance I generally just go ahead and say, that's fine. I don't argue that. I don't say I'm a bigger fan, but you know, you went there, you lived it. So I'll buy that. I don't know the part that I don't agree with, that you're much more objective because you felt the pain. You know, you went there, you know, you lived it. You know, you were right there at the time. You might have had, you know, some of the players in your class and everything. So you're very close to it. I don't know if that means you're more objective. I'll give it to you that, you know, you can play the card and say, hey, I'm a bigger deal, or I'm a bigger fan, or I know more. I think that that is a little bit of a trump card that you can play, but I don't agree about it necessarily being more objective. Just my thoughts. I know everybody looks at that kind of stuff different. Mark talking baseball now, 200-1 to win the World Series, a low bar from 1968. Yeah, well, there's no the Tigers, you know, World Series. So like, let's talk about just 500. Can we talk about 500? That's what I want to talk about. World Series. Andre's wanting to talk basketball. We talked up Jimmy recently, but is Boston about to pull this thing off? Is Boston, Andres, I want to remind you that there have been 150 in the history of the NBA, 150 playoff series that have been, a team has been up 3-0. In 150 of those series, the team that was up 3-0 is 150-0. So you're thinking that Boston is going to be the first team in now 151 instances to be the, you know, 0.5%. You might be right. I think that game 6 tomorrow is really game 7 for Miami. And they continue to get injured, and here comes Boston. If Boston shoots, Van Gundy, the former Piston coach, he laid down the numbers. Now, let me see if I can recall them. I wasn't writing them down, but he was talking about the 3-point shooting from Boston. If you're looking for a stat or two in that series, if Boston scores better than their opponent from the 3-point line, I think he said they win 75% of their game. So if they just shoot more threes, make more threes, it was either I think it was make more threes than their opponent, they win 75% of the time. If they shoot Boston 40% from downtown, like they did last night, they win over 95%. So that's a good thing. Is Boston hitting those threes? And the way White was knocking those things down last night. But if I'm going to pick Miami tomorrow night, but if Boston wins tomorrow night, I do think that they will win game 7 back in Beantown. So that's the way I see it. And there's a part of me, because I was going to say I don't care, but I do want to see Miami win it. I didn't care last night because I don't mind seeing the series extend, because I'm looking forward to, watching a game 6. But I think Miami will get it done tomorrow. And I wouldn't mind seeing Duncan Robinson coming up big for the Heat. Jason works his ass off 24/7 to get info on Michigan recruiting. Hey, your work, Jason, is paying off. I can tell by the way that you to throw the information out there. You know what you're talking about. And yeah, a waffle did waffle on his commitment to Notre Dame. There you go. Mark throwing some 68 names out there. McAuliffe, Northrop, K-Line, Horton, Cash, Freehand, Wirt, Euler, Lolich, Wilson. Badly missed as Tiger fan. Yeah, the 68 team was before my time, but that's all I ever heard about was the 68 team. I felt like I knew. I felt like I was alive during 68, and like that I was at all of those games for as much as my uncle and my dad talked about them. How about the 68 series, Mark? Weren't the Tigers down 3-1 in the World Series? Imagine talk shows or Twitter or posting boards or, good afternoon Tiger baseball in 68 with the Tigers down 6-1, and, the Cardinals have Bob Gibson out there. I'd have been sitting here saying, guys, I think it's probably over. I think it's probably over, this great season, and we've all come together. The city was in turmoil. A racial divide and baseball has brought us this far. Let's all remember what the Tigers were able to do for us this summer. But I think it's over. Cody wants to know how many edges we are going to land. Mason Curtis playing edge. Outside linebacker, do we get Mayo, Jacob Smith, and B-Rob? Mayo is the teammate of Childs, right? I do think that they're looking good for Mayo. Who doesn't like Mayo? Jacob Smith is the twin brother of Gerard Smith. I've always thought that they were going to get Jacob. So, yes. And B-Rob is funny. 2 months ago, I thought he was a shoo-in, and then he seemed to be wavering, and now I'm 50-50 on B-Rob. I'll say I'm 75% on Mayo, and I'm 90% on Jacob Smith. So there's 3 edges. And then what do you got? They got Curtis, and they've got Gerard Smith right now. There's 2 there, so that's 5. And then those are some big time numbers. Let's see. Salty Notre Dame fans. We've got, I don't know what's going on here. This is somebody saying he has a sports channel. Is it called Michigan football and hockey? Okay. You have to send me a little bit more information on that. I'll check it out. What's going on? Especially you're grinding that much on recruiting. Let's see what Tim has to say. I was just a big fan before I went to U of M as I am after. We're all the same. We are all the same. Go blue. Yeah, Tim. It's like welcome to the party. Let's go. But I just say what if people do like to, want to say that they're better or bigger Michigan sports fan. Like I really, to be honest, I don't think there's anybody that's a bigger Michigan fan than me. But if you said, "Hey, I went to Michigan," I'm like, okay, you're a bigger fan. And I do think that people that follow, like I haven't always followed recruiting like up to every how Jason was saying that's all he does is grind after the recruiting news in the off season. I have not always grinded after the recruiting news, like for every minute. I've been like, let's check it out, but not to the extent like, that Jason does. So if Jason wanted to say that, hey, he was a bigger Michigan fan because he grinds out all day, all night, and I could say, all right, I'll give it to him too. If he wanted to say he was a bigger Michigan fan. And you know what? When you cover a team like I did for a long time, and then you lose a little bit of the fandom. It's not the same. Some people have had the ability to, kind of stay like big Michigan fans. Like they'll walk into the press box and they might as well have pom-poms in their hands, like, yay, yay, Michigan. Like, it's kind of a professional setting. And so while everybody else is cheering, in the stadium and everything, you're measured, you're reporting, might have to ask a tough question. And so I think you lose a little bit of the fandom there. But look, have been plenty, and they're really successful. They've done it for over 20 years. But man, those guys, they were able to, they wear their maize and blue. They got their hats on. They walk right in like, go blue. And hey, it's real. It happens. They always said, I remember the first time that I was in that press box, it was a little bit weird, because they say, there's no cheering in the press box. I was like, oh, okay. And it's true. There's no cheering. But you can boo, I guess. No, but then there's people that put that to the test. They're pumping their fists while things are going on during the game. Let's see. Richard is true blue. Richard is now going back and talking about George Rogers from South Carolina, the running back in the non-conference in the early 80s. How did Michigan get South Carolina that year? Did George Rogers win the Heisman Trophy that year too, Mark? Yeah, that would have been painful. Watching George Rogers would have been running over Michigan would have been very painful. Let's see. Mark going back to the 68 World Series. Lolich started games 2, 5, and 7 on 2 days rest. Stunning outing. Yeah, Lolich was truly incredible in those series. 2 days rest. And he was going against Gibson. Just great. Mickey Lolich. Jason, what did you miss? Well, we're talking about 68 Tigers. And we talked about recruiting. You can go back and watch it. Let's go. All right. Jacob Smith, we've got Jason listing the official visits. I like seeing that. Cody says he sees Gerard being a Jenkins type prospect. Gerard Smith, Jacob's brother, his twin brother. I don't know, maybe. That's it. AJ doesn't want Robinson. He's played too many games. I don't like his film. Thinks he should be a 3-star. Well, I got to hand it to you, AJ. You've been consistent, from the start. You watched the film and you didn't like it. Richard remembering the 68 Tigers as well, putting, Sparma as the fifth starter in there. The coach says he notices that I am getting better with recruiting. He'll give me credit. Well, thanks, coach. I do. I put in the time on it. I'm working at it. AJ's followed Michigan since he's been 5. His father had him sitting in front of the TV since he was born. There's somebody taking a little shot, some Michigan fans, that everybody can afford it. Look, I am from the state of Michigan, and I just remember in high school, talking to some of the counselors, and they're like, this is the classes that you have to take, and then you have to be like the top 1%, and then you have to do all the stuff after school and all of this, and then maybe, you'll have a shot, at getting into Michigan. It's like, wow, that's incredible. And really, that's, I think, the way it was. It's still like that. Like, you got to be like in the 1% of your school, maybe higher than that. And then, you're still not guaranteed to get in. So it's very difficult. So anybody that has done the work and is able to get in there, I always give credit. My particular story, I mentioned, my uncle that was talking about the Tigers. He was a veteran of the Vietnam War. He came back, and we used to go probably a lot on Memorial Weekend to his house because he had a pool. And he also had a garage, and they opened it up. And I just remember him sitting there and just telling stories. He had season tickets to Michigan. And he would talk about that there were more people that went to the stadium that lived in Ann Arbor. And then he talked about the stadium and how, it wasn't really all that big of a deal. You drive up to the stadium and it would look like maybe a high school stadium. But once you got inside, there'd be over 100,000. And then he would talk about all the different things that went on, even before the game started. You had to have he just would spin these tales. And I don't know how old I was, 4, 5, like Antoine, talking about it. And so before I even watched football, I would hear about, this palace, the big house that you've dreamed about. And then it happened. I went to a game. I didn't go till I was 14, 15. Was it 85 or 86? Michigan, Iowa. Mike Gillette kicked a field goal at the end of the game to win it. And everybody went pouring down onto the field. I was right next to the student section, and a friend of mine was with me and his brother who drove us, and they said, let's go. And they all went down to the field, and we all jumped out there. We're all on the field. Michigan wins it. It was a great game, a great ending. That's a great game when it's a great ending. But all of the things that my uncle had talked about, the stadium, look at it, and then, once you're in there, it lived up to the hype of the tales that were told to me. Mark wants to talk about a big 68 omission of Mickey Stanley. And that was, my uncle loved telling the story about Mickey Stanley. Let me see if I can get it right. Euler was the Tigers' regular, and Mark had mentioned him, shortstop, I believe, in 68. And Stanley was, I believe, was he a Gold Glove caliber type center fielder? And they switched Stanley and put him at shortstop, which was a huge move. To get his bat into the lineup. Is that how it went down? Something like that. I think it's almost exactly like that. I wasn't prepared for 68 Tiger memories and trivia, but I'm here now. Let's do it. Let's see. Stanley hit a home run. McLean lost. One of the 4 to Gibson. AJ's been following the Wolverines since the 70s. Mark was watching the games in black and white. I love it. Stanley playing shortstop in the series, one of the greatest moves from skipper Mayo Smith. I'm in. Richard had 2 jobs when he went to school. And sound like, it was his mom and dad paying the freight. All good stuff. Mark talking about his time at Michigan, $600 per semester. Prices of the increase are criminal. No wonder we're 1 million or 1 trillion in student loan debt. College costs far too high. I'm with you on that. Yeah, you get a friend with a pool. That's the way to do it. My uncle had one. Let's see. Troy's weighing in. He was born in '69 in Detroit. His earliest memory of Michigan football is his dad watching it and me running around trying to imitate what I was seeing. Troy, I was born in 1970. I told you about my uncle. I can also remember me being by myself in the living room and like diving over the couch and being as fired up. And I don't know how old I was, 5, 6, 7, I would guess somewhere in there. But being as fired up as I could for being like 5 or 6 or 7, but looking back on it, and it was a Michigan Ohio State game, I can recall that. But knowing that Brent Musburger, if you'd heard your uncle talk about, the big house, and then you got Brent Musburger coming out saying, folks, you are looking live in Ann Arbor, it is Bo, it is Woody. And, he's just, it grabs you. And it never releases you. Well, you get that. I mean, you can't. You think you're hyped now. When you're 7 years old and you got Musburger, Schembechler taking on his mentor, and you just you're going. It happens. Antoine. Mark likes the Mickey Stanley stuff. Gary's first Michigan game was 1972. He was 10 years old. Well, those are some great years. You started out 72. Those were great years. Andre's talking about, well, let's work through the rest of these. I've got one more thing, but it's a pretty easy thing that I wanted to tell everybody. Michigan, Penn State on November 11th. You probably have seen this, but I wanted to mention it anyways. Fox's big noon kickoff will feature Michigan, Penn State. Noteworthy that Michigan does not have to play a night game at Penn State. And we know that for sure now we have 2 games locked in and they're both noon. Michigan at Penn State on the 11th, and then the 25th at the Big House against Ohio State. That is going to be a noon kickoff. Noon kickoff, so that's positive. You don't want to be, if you have the choice, I'd rather see Michigan play Penn State at noon in Happy Valley than play in a whiteout at night. I think everybody agrees with me, so that's good news. And you're talking about the black and white TVs. Get some pliers. Get a hanger. Yes, my brother had a black and white TV. I had black and white TV. I'm gonna go like you get the same thing. Like now, it wasn't that long ago that you had instead of having they changed it to digital TV and you could still get it like just over the airwaves. And some people do that, and it comes in pretty good. And if you're in a good spot, but back in the day, just rolling with the antenna, you could still get some. That was, they had a picture-in-picture or 2 TVs. I had a satellite dish, but then I also had a small color TV that was just, had some rabbit ears, and I get a pretty good picture. And I was rolling, 2 football games going. That happening. Andre's talking about golf. He's been committing violent acts on the golf ball lately. But he has gained 30 or more yards after this past winter. He is averaging around 300. Well, hey, Andres, I'm a really bad golfer, but I usually keep it under like 115, 120. So I don't even know what it would be like, scoring 300 for 18. No, I know. You're talking about driving 300? That's amazing. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever hit 300. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. Antoine talking about watching Kung Fu Theater or Godzilla. All right, you're going to take me back, Antoine. I grew up in Brightmoor, and what I would have been watching on the black and white TV would have been a show called Johnny Sacco. I used to have this robot, and he used to shoot bullets. And then there was this other one where this the hero Ultraman, maybe he could do everything. He could fly around, but he had his sensor with the sun, and so I don't know what happened to the sensor. It would be a cloudy day or something, Ultraman, and then it wouldn't really work out for him. But I think Ultraman went up against Godzilla a lot in that. That's what was happening. For me back in the day, that would have been Channel 20. They were rolling those out. Channel 50, you'd have like an all-day fest where you'd be watching probably Gilligan's Island, would be on there. Green Acres, would be maybe following that one. The Brady Bunch. Those might have been on different channels. But I definitely like some Johnny Sacco and Ultraman. Those are my shows way back in the day. Black and white on Channel 20 or 50. That's it. Is that it, Troy? Ultraman? I think those might have been, no, I think Japanese made. Had some of that going. OT is so sick of Big Noon. OT, I want to mention Big Noon. You said, you're sick of him. Yesterday, the news came out that the Tigers were putting a patch. They were selling a patch from Myers. They were going to get $1 million. They're going to put a patch on there. And everybody was like, predictably, like, this sellout garbage. And, yeah, it sucks. And I know they have, like, they'll have a Nike swoosh or whatever fans, whoever does the hats, fan sided. I don't know, forget what they're called. I have one. I should know, and so you get used to those. And the idea is, well, you just get used to these. And, there's advertising everywhere. The freaking stadium is named after a bank. So, all of that. But so you get used to it and you get all that. But I do have to say, when it comes down to the patches on like basketball, when they started doing it 2 years ago, it looks cheap. It looks goofy. And I don't like it. And I have not gotten used to it. Every time I see one, I said, that looks like the free handouts that you would get at the game. It don't look like real uniforms. I hate it. Watching hockey for the last 2 years, when I have to look at, the stupid advertising on the helmet, I hate that. And then I was watching the Tiger game last night, and there's a little silly little patch. Myers. And I guess I'll just get used to it. Everybody wants to get paid. Everybody wants money. Advertising works. So, we'll continue with that. And there's any little inch or anywhere, they'll sell it if somebody's going to give you money for it. It doesn't mean we have to like it and we can complain about it. And I'm complaining about it right now. But then I'm complaining about it, but at some point, just move on, because don't go to Myers. Is that what my solution is? Bitch about the Tigers, about, them putting a patch on there for a little while. Am I going to bitch about it? I bitched about them naming the new Tiger Stadium Comerica Park. I was saying, I remember being on the radio, I'll never call it that. It's the new Tiger Stadium. I refuse to call it Comerica Park. Well, hell, I started working for the network. I had to call it Comerica Park. I got used to it. But I say all that because you get used to the advertising and everything else. And I was thinking yesterday, is there any kind of advertising that really gets me? There is. There's a few. There's a few law firms that continue like that. Just like they inundate and but for them, it probably works. Because you're so sick of them. Even though I say I will never use them, they're probably like, so what? Everybody else will, because they know us. Because, now we're a featured name. The one that has me the most is Big Noon. I'll watch a college football. We get commercials. We get that it's brought to you by everybody. And I like the players getting paid. I don't care if the coaches get paid millions. I don't care if the universities get paid billions. They're socking it to me. All of it. I get it. Big Noon Here's the kickoff, brought to you by the Maize and Blue Review. We'll be right back. And, it's like 4 more minutes, and then they're coming back. The time they kick it off, they have all the commercials, they kick it off, they go to another commercial, and they come back. It feels like there's like a 10 minutes, and the only thing you see is the kickoff. And you're so excited for the game, you're like, it's very noticeable on Big Noon kickoff that it takes like an hour before you get to see the first series. I hate it. I haven't been used to it. And if that's what you're talking about, I'm with you. I know how to kill time but the problem is like, here it is, you're on a commercial. I pick up my phone and go out. Next thing you know, I'd like to just watch the game. And I get, you got to play commercials, but there is a point where it's too many. And you know what, OT? There's too many commercials on Big Noon. And Mark, you are so right about this. I DVR a lot of the games. Hard part is if you like Antoine was talking about Twitter, if you like, tweeting something in between commercials, or you like looking at some other games and everything, it can screw with you. Screw you. You can get screwed. But it's nice if there's a window, if it's only Michigan and you're all right. I am with you. Like, I like starting the game 20 minutes or a half hour late, because I, again, can zip through it. It's very nice. My wife doesn't like that. She doesn't like me looking, but I like to, how many of you like to go back 15 seconds and, hey, I want to see the replay. Especially if they're going to a commercial. It's like, hey, let's go back and look at that play for 2-3 minutes. Let's look at this play. My wife can't stand that. So I know that if I'm watching a game with her, if that's not happening. But I'm with you, Mark. The DVR, being able to then zip through, it's nice. That is nice. All right. Now we're talking about, classic shows from the 80s and 70s. If you're from Detroit, you had this guy. What was his name? He was like the ghoul, or I don't remember. He was a Dracula type dude, but I don't remember his name. He was a little bit scary, but he was cool. I was young. I just forget his name. Mark likes to watch in slow motion. Try it. Yeah, I like to go back and look at the replays on slow motion. You know what I'm thinking about my TV. Sometimes it'll put like a little, the indicator that it is slow motion sometimes gets in the way of what I'm trying to see. And I don't like that. Sir Ghastly, would that have been in that guy's name? He would be like in his coffin, and then he would pop up, and he would be like right there in the middle of the day. He wasn't like on that night. He was still kind of scary when you're like 5 or 6 years old. We've got the movie coming up. Maybe it was the Ghoul. Sir Graves Ghastly. Let me see if I can get a picture of him while we're sitting here. For those of you that are a little bit younger, this guy, I wasn't into the scary movies, but was he wasn't funny, but I liked him. Ooh, I just saw a picture of him. Yeah, there he is. This guy. He was created by a Cleveland-born actor. Let me show you a picture of him, because this is definitely him. Let's blow it up. This guy. This guy would be coming around, and yeah, I mean, he is scary looking. And there he is, coming on out of the, and he'd just be showing up on a Saturday morning, talking you up like, hey, what's going on? The Ghoul might have been, I'm talking about Ghastly. I'm not sure. Yeah, Antoine remembers him too. Before my time, there was a guy Was it Fang or something? He had like a white sock or something. He would be talking. And who was the Soupy Sales? Maybe the White Fang, was that his name? He was just sitting there with a sock puppet. I don't know. All right. Hopefully, you have a meaningful Memorial weekend. I'll be here on Monday with you. We'll talk about the latest in Michigan. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review this weekend. Thanks so much for watching, and have yourself a nice weekend. So long.